The value chain of ivory begins with the raw material itself. Ivory is composed primarily of calcium phosphate and collagen, the same materials found in human teeth and bones. However, ivory's unique crystalline structure gives it properties that have made it prized for thousands of years. When polished, ivory develops a lustrous sheen that cannot be replicated by synthetic materials. Its density allows for intricate carving while maintaining structural integrity, making it ideal for artistic and decorative applications. To understand the magnitude of this crisis, we must first examine the economics that drive the ivory trade. The illegal ivory trade generates an estimated $23 billion annually, making it one of the world's most lucrative criminal enterprises. This staggering figure exceeds the gross domestic product of many nations and creates financial incentives so powerful that they overwhelm conservation efforts and legal protections. The value chain of ivory begins with the raw material itself. Ivory is composed primarily of calcium phosphate and collagen, the same materials found in human teeth and bones. However, ivory's unique crystalline structure gives it properties that have made it prized for thousands of years. When polished, ivory develops a lustrous sheen that cannot be replicated by synthetic materials. Its density allows for intricate carving while maintaining structural integrity, making it ideal for artistic and decorative applications. A single adult elephant typically carries between 8 to 12 kilograms of ivory in its tusks. At current black market prices, this represents raw material worth approximately $25,000 to $30,000. However, this figure represents only the initial value in the trade chain. By the time ivory reaches retail consumers, processed products can sell for $15,000 to $50,000 per kilogram, depending on the craftsmanship and cultural significance of the finished piece. The primary demand for ivory comes from Asia, with China representing the largest single market. Despite a domestic ban implemented in 2017, demand in China remains substantial due to cultural traditions that view ivory as a symbol of prosperity and good fortune. Traditional Chinese medicine also incorporates ivory powder, though scientific research has found no medicinal benefits. The cultural significance of ivory in Chinese society creates a market that is relatively price insensitive, meaning that even dramatic price increases do not significantly reduce demand. Japan constitutes the second largest ivory market, where ivory is primarily used for traditional Hanko personal seals. These seals serve as signatures in Japanese business and legal transactions, and ivory Hanko are considered prestigious status symbols. A high-quality ivory Hanko can sell for $5,000 to $15,000 in Japanese retail markets. The cultural importance of these seals in Japanese society creates sustained demand despite international pressure and domestic regulations. Southeast Asian markets, particularly Thailand and Vietnam, serve dual roles as both consumers and transit points for ivory trafficking. These countries have become major processing centers where raw ivory is carved into finished products before being distributed to final markets. The sophisticated craftsmanship available in these regions, combined with relatively weak law enforcement, makes them attractive bases for ivory trafficking operations. The economic structure of ivory trafficking resembles international drug trafficking networks in its organization and sophistication. At the base level, local hunters in Africa are typically recruited from impoverished rural communities where few legitimate economic opportunities exist. A successful ivory hunting operation can provide income equivalent to several years of subsistence farming, making it an attractive option despite the obvious risks. These local hunters are often equipped and organized by middlemen who provide weapons, ammunition, communication equipment, and transportation. Modern ivory hunting operations use military-grade weapons, satellite phones, GPS navigation systems, and even night vision equipment. The technological sophistication of these operations reflects the substantial financial resources available to ivory trafficking organizations. The transformation of traditional subsistence hunting into industrial-scale ivory poaching represents one of the most dramatic changes in human-wildlife interaction over the past century. Traditional hunters used simple weapons and techniques that gave elephants reasonable chances of escape. Modern poaching operations employ helicopters for reconnaissance, automatic weapons for killing, and advanced logistics for processing and transportation. This technological asymmetry has shifted the balance decisively against elephant populations. Transportation networks for moving ivory from Africa to Asian markets are equally sophisticated. Maritime shipping represents the primary method for moving large quantities of ivory across international borders. Traffickers conceal ivory shipments within legitimate commercial cargo, often using multiple transshipments through different ports to obscure the origin and destination of the contraband. Container shipping makes detection extremely difficult, as customs authorities cannot physically inspect more than a small fraction of the millions of containers that move through international ports annually. Air transportation is used for smaller, high-value shipments, particularly processed ivory products that command premium prices. Traffickers exploit weaknesses in airport security and customs procedures, often using diplomatic pouches or corrupt officials to move ivory past inspection points. The high value-to-weight ratio of processed ivory makes air transportation economically viable despite higher costs and security risks. Transit countries play crucial roles in ivory trafficking networks. Dubai, Singapore, and Hong Kong serve as major transshipment hubs where ivory is often mixed with legitimate goods or provided with fraudulent documentation to disguise its origin. These international trade centers have the infrastructure and commercial volume necessary to hide large-scale trafficking operations within legitimate business activities. The financial mechanics of ivory trafficking involve complex money laundering operations that integrate illegal proceeds into legitimate financial systems. Traffickers use trade-based money laundering techniques where the value of ivory shipments is either over-invoiced or under-invoiced, depending on the direction of money flows. Alternative remittance systems, particularly those serving immigrant communities, provide additional channels for moving money across borders without creating traditional banking records. Corruption represents a critical enabler of ivory trafficking throughout the supply chain. In source countries, traffickers must corrupt park rangers, military personnel, customs officials, and government administrators to operate effectively. The substantial profits available from ivory sales make it relatively easy to offer bribes that exceed the annual salaries of low-paid government employees. This systemic corruption undermines conservation efforts and weakens institutions in countries that can least afford additional governance challenges. In transit countries, corruption typically focuses on port and airport personnel who can facilitate the movement of contraband through inspection points. The high volume of international trade in these locations provides numerous opportunities for corrupt activities while making detection by honest officials statistically unlikely. Container terminals and air cargo facilities employ thousands of people, many of whom have access to cargo areas where ivory shipments can be manipulated. Consumer country corruption often involves customs and border control personnel who represent the final barrier before ivory enters retail distribution networks. The high value of ivory products makes it worthwhile for traffickers to invest substantial resources in corrupting these final checkpoints. Additionally, some legitimate businesses in consumer countries may be complicit in ivory trafficking, providing retail outlets that blend illegal ivory products with legal merchandise. The economic impact of ivory trafficking extends far beyond the direct participants in the illegal trade. Tourism represents one of the largest economic sectors in many African countries, and elephant populations are major attractions for international visitors. The decimation of elephant herds directly reduces tourism revenues, eliminating legitimate economic opportunities and employment for local communities. Kenya's tourism sector, for example, generates over $2 billion annually and employs more than 400,000 people. Elephant viewing represents a significant component of the country's tourism appeal, and the loss of elephant populations would substantially reduce tourism revenues. Economic studies suggest that a live elephant generates approximately $1.6 million in tourism revenue over its lifetime, compared to the one-time value of $25,000 to $30,000 for its ivory. The ecological services provided by elephants also have substantial economic value that is lost when populations decline. Elephants serve as keystone species that maintain ecosystem balance through their feeding and movement patterns. They create waterholes used by other wildlife, disperse seeds across vast distances, and maintain savanna ecosystems by preventing forest encroachment. The economic value of these ecological services is difficult to quantify, but certainly exceeds the market value of elephant ivory. Agricultural impacts represent another significant economic consequence of elephant population declines. Elephants play crucial roles in soil fertilization and seed dispersal that support agricultural productivity in many regions. The loss of elephant populations can reduce crop yields and require additional inputs of artificial fertilizers that increase costs for subsistence farmers who can least afford such expenses. The social costs of ivory trafficking include increased violence and instability in many African regions. Armed poaching groups often engage in banditry and terrorism that affects local communities far beyond their direct impacts on elephant populations. In countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, and Somalia, ivory trafficking helps finance armed groups that perpetuate civil conflicts and humanitarian crises. The proliferation of automatic weapons associated with ivory poaching has militarized many rural areas and increased general levels of violence. Communities that previously resolved conflicts through traditional mechanisms now face armed groups that operate outside established social structures. This breakdown of traditional authority contributes to broader governance challenges in regions that already struggle with state capacity and legitimacy. Gender-specific impacts of ivory trafficking include increased risks for women and children in affected communities. Armed poaching groups often engage in sexual violence and human trafficking as secondary criminal activities. The presence of heavily armed criminal groups in remote areas creates security environments where normal social protections break down and vulnerable populations become targets for various forms of exploitation. International efforts to combat ivory trafficking include both supply-side and demand-side interventions. The Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, CITES, banned international ivory trade in 1989, creating the legal framework for enforcement actions. However, enforcement capabilities vary dramatically between countries, and many nations lack the resources or political will necessary for effective implementation. Supply-side enforcement focuses on disrupting trafficking operations through law enforcement actions against hunters, transporters, and middlemen. This approach includes anti-poaching operations in protected areas, border controls to intercept trafficking shipments, and financial investigations to disrupt money laundering networks. However, the high profitability of ivory trafficking means that arrested operatives are quickly replaced, making it difficult to achieve lasting impacts through enforcement alone. Recent technological innovations have enhanced enforcement capabilities in some contexts. Satellite monitoring can track elephant movements and detect human intrusions into protected areas. DNA analysis can determine the geographic origin of seized ivory, helping to identify trafficking routes and source populations. Camera traps and acoustic monitoring systems can detect poaching activities and alert rapid response teams. Demand-side interventions attempt to reduce market demand for ivory products through education campaigns, legal restrictions, and social pressure. China's domestic ivory ban represented the most significant demand-side intervention to date, eliminating the world's largest legal ivory market. However, illegal demand persists, and some evidence suggests that demand has shifted to other countries with weaker regulatory environments. Consumer education campaigns attempt to reduce demand by highlighting the connection between ivory products and elephant killings. These campaigns have achieved some success, particularly among younger consumers who are more responsive to conservation messages. However, cultural traditions and status considerations make it difficult to change consumption patterns among core demographic groups that drive ivory demand. Economic substitution represents another demand-side approach that attempts to provide alternative materials for traditional ivory applications. Synthetic alternatives can replicate many of ivory's physical properties at lower costs and without environmental impacts. However, cultural and aesthetic preferences for genuine ivory remain strong among traditional user communities. Community-based conservation approaches attempt to create economic incentives for local communities to protect elephant populations rather than participate in trafficking. These programs provide revenue sharing from tourism and sustainable resource use while creating employment opportunities in conservation activities. Success rates vary widely depending on implementation quality and the availability of alternative economic opportunities. Wildlife corridors and habitat connectivity represent long-term conservation strategies that address some of the underlying causes of human-elephant conflict. As human populations expand and agricultural activities intensify, elephants face increasing pressure on traditional ranges and migration routes. Corridor projects attempt to maintain connectivity while reducing conflicts that often lead to retaliatory killings. Now let us turn our attention to a specific elephant family whose story illustrates both the devastating impact of ivory trafficking and the remarkable resilience of these incredible animals. This family's struggle for survival plays out against the backdrop of the economic and social forces we have just examined, demonstrating how global market forces translate into life and death consequences for individual animals. The Temara family consists of 17 elephants led by a 60-year-old matriarch, whose decades of experience have guided her family through droughts, floods, predator attacks, and previous encounters with human hunters. Elephant matriarchs serve as living repositories of knowledge accumulated over lifetimes that can span 70 years or more. Their memories include the locations of water sources, seasonal migration routes, and safe passages that are critical for family survival. Elephant social structures are among the most complex in the animal kingdom. Families are matrilineal, with leadership passing from mother to daughter through generations of accumulated wisdom. Adult females remain with their birth families throughout their lives, creating multi-generational units where knowledge is continuously transmitted from older to younger generations. This social learning system allows elephant families to adapt to changing environmental conditions while maintaining cultural traditions that enhance survival. The importance of matriarchal leadership becomes apparent during crisis situations, when quick decision-making can determine family survival. Experienced matriarchs can interpret environmental cues that younger elephants might miss, such as the subtle changes in air pressure and humidity that precede seasonal storms. They know which water sources are likely to be reliable during drought years and which routes provide the best combination of food availability and predator avoidance. On this particular morning, matriarch Temara is leading her family across open savanna when she hears the distant sound of a helicopter approaching from the east. Her 60 years of experience have taught her to recognize the mechanical sounds associated with human hunting operations. The rhythmic thumping of rotor blades creates acoustic signatures that are distinctly different from the natural sounds of the African landscape. The helicopter represents the technological advantage that modern ivory hunters possess over their quarry. Unlike traditional hunters who relied on stealth and local knowledge, contemporary poaching operations employ aerial surveillance to locate elephant herds across vast areas. Helicopters provide mobility and elevation that allow hunting teams to track elephant movements in real time while coordinating ground-based attacks. From an altitude of several hundred meters, a helicopter crew can observe elephant families for hours without being detected, studying their movement patterns and identifying optimal attack points. The aerial perspective also allows hunters to evaluate the size and quality of tusks before committing resources to a hunting operation. Large tusks command premium prices, making it economically rational for hunters to be selective in their targeting. Modern hunting helicopters are equipped with GPS navigation systems, satellite communication equipment, and high-powered optics that provide capabilities far beyond those available to traditional hunters. Some operations use thermal imaging cameras that can detect elephants even in dense vegetation or during nighttime hours. These technological advantages create an asymmetric situation where elephants have little chance of escape once they have been located by aerial surveillance. The helicopter approaching Temara's family is part of a coordinated hunting operation that includes ground vehicles positioned to intercept elephants fleeing from aerial harassment. This tactical coordination reflects the military-style planning that characterizes modern poaching operations. Ground teams use radio communication to receive real-time updates on elephant positions while positioning themselves along likely escape routes. Temara immediately recognizes the threat represented by the approaching helicopter and begins implementing evasive maneuvers developed through decades of experience with human hunters. She emits a low-frequency warning call that is inaudible to humans but immediately understood by every member of her family. This infrasonic communication can travel several kilometers through the ground, allowing elephants to coordinate defensive actions across vast distances. The family's response demonstrates the sophisticated anti-predator behaviors that have evolved in elephant populations facing human hunting pressure. Within seconds of Temara's warning call, the 17 family members form a defensive formation with adults protecting calves while maintaining mobility toward the nearest available cover. This coordination occurs without visible signals that human observers might detect, relying instead on subtle body language and infrasonic communication. Young Kessie, an 8-month-old calf, represents both the future of the family and its most vulnerable member. At this age, calves are still learning basic survival skills and depend entirely on adult protection for survival. Kessie's mother, Jemgor, positions herself between her calf and the approaching threat while maintaining physical contact that provides reassurance and guidance. The formation of protective groups around vulnerable family members illustrates the altruistic behaviors that characterize elephant societies. Adult elephants will risk their own lives to protect calves that may not be their direct offspring, demonstrating the kind of cooperative behavior that enhances group survival. This willingness to sacrifice individual safety for family welfare creates strong incentives for maintaining group cohesion during crisis situations. Bomani, a 15-year-old adolescent male, represents a different category of family member, whose role is evolving as he approaches independence. At this age, male elephants begin developing the size and strength that will eventually make them capable of independent survival, while still benefiting from family protection and knowledge transfer. Bomani's responses to the current crisis will influence his development into a leader capable of protecting future generations. The helicopter tactics employed by the hunting team follow established patterns designed to maximize efficiency while minimizing risks to human hunters. The aircraft maintains altitude and distance sufficient to avoid ground-based threats while using its speed and maneuverability to control elephant movement patterns. Herding elephants toward predetermined kill zones represents a tactical approach that has proven effective in numerous previous operations. However, experienced elephant matriarchs like Temara have learned to recognize and counter these tactics through adaptive behaviors that reflect the ongoing evolutionary arms race between human hunters and their elephant prey. Rather than fleeing in panic, which would make her family predictable and controllable, Temara leads a measured retreat that maintains options while avoiding obvious tactical traps. The choice of escape route demonstrates the complex decision-making that elephant matriarchs must perform under extreme pressure. Temara must consider multiple factors, including the terrain ahead, the locations of water sources, the physical condition of family members, and the likely tactics that hunters will employ. Her decision to move westward toward distant mountains reflects a strategic calculation that prioritizes long-term survival over short-term safety. The western route leads toward a mountain range approximately 400 kilometers away that offers dense forest cover and terrain too rough for effective vehicle operations. This destination represents sanctuary for elephants capable of reaching it, but the journey requires crossing multiple types of habitat where different survival challenges await. Open savanna provides little concealment but allows rapid movement, while wooded areas offer hiding places at the cost of reduced mobility. The hunting team's ground vehicles become audible as diesel engines and radio chatter carry across the landscape from multiple directions. The coordination between air and ground assets demonstrates the professional planning that characterizes modern ivory trafficking operations. Unlike opportunistic hunters who might pursue individual elephants, these operations target entire families with the intention of maximizing ivory harvest from each tactical engagement. Vehicle-borne hunting teams carry equipment that includes high-powered rifles, ammunition, processing tools, communication gear, and logistical supplies necessary for extended operations. The weapons employed in elephant hunting are typically military-grade firearms capable of penetrating thick elephant hide and delivering immediately fatal shots. Professional hunters prefer weapons that minimize the risk of wounded elephants escaping and ivory being lost to scavengers. The psychological impact of motorized pursuit on elephant families extends beyond immediate physical threats. Elephants possess excellent memories and can develop conditioned fear responses to mechanical sounds associated with hunting operations. The stress of prolonged pursuit affects elephant physiology in ways that reduce immune function, disrupt reproduction, and accelerate aging processes that ultimately impact population sustainability. As Temara leads her family across increasingly open terrain, the tactical disadvantages facing elephants in modern hunting scenarios become apparent. Their large size and slow movement make concealment difficult, while their need for water creates predictable behavior patterns that hunters can exploit. Unlike their ancestors who faced traditional hunters with primitive weapons, contemporary elephants confront adversaries whose technological capabilities approach those of military units. The helicopter maintains visual contact while coordinating with ground teams, whose positions are updated continuously through GPS tracking and radio communication. This real-time intelligence sharing allows hunting operations to adapt quickly to elephant-evasive maneuvers while maintaining pressure that prevents escape towards sanctuary areas. The systematic nature of this pursuit reflects tactical doctrines developed through numerous previous operations. Water requirements force elephants to make tactical compromises that human hunters understand and exploit. Adult elephants must consume 200-300 liters of water daily, with nursing mothers requiring even larger quantities to maintain milk production. During dry seasons, when water sources are limited, elephant movements become highly predictable as families are forced to visit known water points regardless of security risks. The first major tactical decision facing Temara occurs when the family approaches a seasonal river that represents both an obstacle and an opportunity. Crossing the river would place a barrier between the family and their immediate pursuers, but river crossings present numerous risks, including swift currents, predators, and extended periods of vulnerability during the crossing operation itself. Rivers in elephant habitat often contain hippopotamus populations that can pose serious threats to crossing elephants. Hippos are highly territorial and will attack elephants that enter their domain, particularly during breeding seasons when protective instincts are heightened.
Adult hippos possess sufficient size and aggression to injure or kill elephant calves, making river crossings extremely dangerous for families with young members. The presence of crocodiles adds another layer of danger to water crossings. Large Nile crocodiles are capable of attacking adult elephants, though they typically target vulnerable individuals such as calves or injured adults. Crocodile hunting strategies rely on ambush tactics that make it difficult for elephants to detect threats until attacks are already underway. Despite these risks, Temara decides that crossing the river represents the best tactical option available to her family. The water barrier would force ground vehicles to find alternate crossing points, potentially buying crucial time for the elephants to reach better terrain. Additionally, the helicopter's effectiveness would be reduced over water, where accurate shooting becomes more difficult due to aircraft movement and limited landing options.
The crossing operation demonstrates the sophisticated coordination that characterizes elephant family behavior under stress. Adults position themselves to assist younger family members while maintaining vigilance against aquatic threats. The formation maximizes protection for vulnerable individuals while ensuring that the group remains cohesive during the dangerous crossing period. Django faces particularly difficult challenges as she guides 8-month-old Casey across swift-flowing water that reaches above the calf's head. Young elephants are capable swimmers, but lack the experience and strength necessary to handle challenging aquatic conditions independently. Maternal support becomes critical during water crossing, where separation could result in drowning or predator attacks. The successful river crossing represents a temporary tactical victory for the elephant family, but it also demonstrates the relentless nature of modern hunting operations. The helicopter simply adjusts its position to continue surveillance, while ground teams radio their location to coordinate alternate crossing routes. This adaptability reflects the professional nature of contemporary ivory trafficking operations that have learned to counter traditional elephant escape tactics. After completing the river crossing, the family faces new challenges as terrain becomes more varied and complex. Rolling hills provide some concealment while creating elevation changes that affect visibility and movement patterns for both elephants and their pursuers. The helicopter must maintain greater altitude to avoid terrain obstacles, reducing its surveillance effectiveness while still maintaining general tracking capabilities. Water consumption during the crossing has provided temporary relief from dehydration stress, but the physical exertion of swimming and climbing riverbanks has depleted energy reserves that are already strained by the extended pursuit. Elephants are adapted for sustained but relatively slow movement, not the rapid pace necessary to stay ahead of mechanized pursuit. The metabolic costs of flight behavior will eventually require rest periods that may not be tactically feasible. Young Casey shows remarkable resilience for such a young animal, but the stress of constant movement and threat exposure begins to affect his behavior and energy levels. Calf development requires substantial energy input for growth and learning, both of which are compromised by the current crisis situation. The long-term health impacts of prolonged stress during critical developmental periods can affect elephants throughout their lives. The terrain west of the river transitions towards semi-arid conditions where water sources become progressively scarcer and vegetation coverage decreases. This environmental change favors the hunting operation by reducing concealment options while creating natural bottlenecks around remaining water sources. The hunter's local knowledge allows them to predict elephant movements with increasing accuracy as options become more limited. Tracking becomes easier for ground teams as elephant footprints in dusty soil create clear trails that can be followed by experienced trackers even without helicopter guidance. Elephant families leave distinctive sign patterns that reveal family size, movement speed, and general condition of group members. This information helps hunters optimize their tactical approach while estimating the potential ivory yield from a successful operation. The psychological pressure of prolonged pursuit affects different family members in various ways that reflect their ages, experiences, and positions within the family hierarchy. Older elephants who have survived previous hunting encounters may show signs of chronic stress that affect their decision-making abilities. Younger elephants who lack experience with human threats may either panic or fail to recognize danger signals appropriately. Bomani's adolescent status creates particular challenges as his size and strength approach adult levels while his judgment and experience remain limited. His natural curiosity and tendency toward risk-taking behaviors must be controlled to prevent actions that could endanger the entire family. The current crisis serves as accelerated learning experience that will influence his development into a mature elephant capable of independent survival. Makena, Temara's 55-year-old sister, serves as deputy leader, whose experience and wisdom complement the matriarch's decision-making. Her knowledge of alternative routes and historical precedents for similar situations provides crucial input for tactical decisions. The collaboration between senior females demonstrates the collective leadership approach that enhances elephant family survival capabilities. As afternoon temperatures rise, heat stress becomes an additional survival factor that compounds the challenges facing the fleeing elephants. African elephants are adapted for hot climates but require access to water and shade for thermoregulation during extreme heat periods. The combination of physical exertion, dehydration, and high ambient temperatures creates conditions that can lead to heat exhaustion or heat stroke. The helicopter's crew faces their own operational challenges as fuel consumption and equipment stress accumulate during extended operations. Aircraft require periodic maintenance and refueling that can create gaps in surveillance coverage. However, professional hunting operations typically employ multiple aircraft and support teams that minimize these vulnerabilities while maintaining continuous pressure on target animals. Communication intercepts reveal that ground teams are repositioning to establish blocking positions along likely elephant escape routes. This tactical development suggests that the hunters are implementing a coordinated containment strategy designed to channel the elephants toward predetermined kill zones. The sophistication of these communications indicates military-style command and control procedures.
The approach toward evening brings both opportunities and additional challenges for the fleeing elephant family. Reduced visibility may provide some concealment advantages, but it also makes navigation more difficult and increases the risk of accidents or separation during movement through unfamiliar terrain. Night operations favor neither elephants nor hunters exclusively, creating a more complex tactical environment. Modern hunting equipment includes night vision devices and thermal imaging systems that maintain surveillance capabilities during dark periods. These technologies provide hunters with significant advantages over elephants whose natural night vision, while excellent, cannot compete with electronic enhancement systems. The availability of artificial illumination through vehicle-mounted spotlights further extends human operational capabilities into nighttime hours. Temara's decision-making process must account for these technological realities while exploiting whatever advantages natural darkness might provide. Her strategy involves utilizing terrain features that block sight lines while maintaining movement toward the distant mountain sanctuary. The balance between concealment and progress becomes increasingly critical as the pursuit enters its second day. The transition from day to night operations reveals the endurance capabilities that separate professional hunting teams from amateur poachers. Sustained operations require logistical support, equipment redundancy, and personnel rotation that are typically available only to well-financed trafficking organizations. The continued pursuit through darkness demonstrates the substantial resources invested in this particular hunting operation. Elephant night vision capabilities are superior to those of most mammals, allowing them to navigate safely through terrain that would challenge humans without artificial aids. Their familiarity with local landscapes provides additional advantages during nighttime movement, as they can recognize landmarks and safe passage routes through memorized terrain features. These advantages partially offset the technological superiority of their human pursuers. The family's movement during nighttime hours demonstrates the energy conservation strategies that elephants employ during extended stress periods. Pace is reduced to sustainable levels while maintaining vigilance for immediate threats. This endurance approach reflects evolutionary adaptations for surviving prolonged environmental challenges such as droughts or seasonal resource shortages. Water becomes an increasingly critical limiting factor as the pursuit continues through its second day. The combination of physical exertion, heat stress, and limited access to water sources creates dehydration conditions that affect both physical performance and cognitive function. Elephants suffering from dehydration show reduced coordination and impaired judgment that can lead to tactical errors. The hunting team's persistence indicates their confidence in eventual success based on the economic incentives driving ivory trafficking operations. The potential financial return from 17 elephants, particularly if the family includes mature adults with large tusks, justifies substantial investment in hunting resources and operational duration. This economic calculation drives tactical decisions that prioritize success over operational efficiency. Terrain features ahead include a complex of seasonal lakes that could provide water access while creating new tactical challenges. Lake environments often contain large predator populations, including crocodiles and hippos that pose threats to elephants attempting to drink or cross open water. The hunters may attempt to exploit these natural hazards by forcing elephants into dangerous water encounters. The approach toward the lake complex requires careful tactical planning as open water areas provide excellent visibility for aerial surveillance while limiting escape routes for surface targets.
Helicopters can maintain observation positions over water while remaining outside the range of any defensive actions that elephants might attempt. This tactical environment strongly favors the hunting operation. Temara's approach to water access demonstrates the risk assessment capabilities that experienced elephants develop through decades of survival in dangerous environments. She must balance immediate water needs against tactical vulnerabilities while evaluating multiple threat types, including human hunters, aquatic predators, and terrain hazards. Her decisions will determine whether the family can safely access water without walking into a tactical trap. The lakeshore presents a complex tactical environment where multiple predator species converge around critical water resources. Crocodile populations in African lakes can reach densities that make safe water access extremely challenging for large herbivores. The presence of multiple threat types forces elephants to maintain vigilance in all directions while accessing resources necessary for survival. Crocodile hunting behavior creates particularly dangerous conditions for elephant families attempting water access. Unlike terrestrial predators that announce their presence through visual or acoustic signals, crocodiles rely on ambush tactics that provide little warning before attacks occur. Large Nile crocodiles possess sufficient size and power to threaten even adult elephants, particularly in aquatic environments where crocodile mobility advantages are maximized. The helicopter maintains elevated surveillance positions while the elephant family approaches the lake shore, its crew undoubtedly coordinating with ground teams positioned around the water complex. This coordination suggests that the hunting operation has anticipated elephant water requirements and pre-positioned assets to exploit predictable behavior patterns. Temara's water access strategy involves sending scouts to evaluate crocodile activity while maintaining family cohesion near escape routes that could be used if threats materialize. This risk management approach reflects the complex decision-making that elephant matriarchs perform when balancing survival requirements against tactical vulnerabilities.
The first crocodile encounter occurs when Temara herself approaches the water's edge to test conditions before allowing other family members to drink. A large bull crocodile launches an ambush attack that targets the matriarch's front leg in an attempt to drag her into deeper water where the crocodile's advantages would be decisive. The attack represents a calculated risk by an apex predator that recognizes elephants as dangerous but potentially profitable prey. Temara's defensive response demonstrates the combat capabilities that allow elephants to survive in environments containing multiple large predators. Her trunk serves as both weapon and shield, while her massive weight and strength provide leverage advantages over the attacking crocodile. The outcome of this encounter will determine whether the family can safely access water or must continue their flight while suffering from progressive dehydration. The battle between elephant and crocodile represents a clash between two of Africa's most powerful species, each adapted for dominance in their preferred environments. The crocodile's advantage lies in aquatic mobility and crushing bite force, while the elephant's advantages include size, reach, and the ability to deliver devastating blows with her trunk. The combat occurs at the interface between terrestrial and aquatic environments, where neither species has complete dominance. Temara's victory over the crocodile attack comes through sustained offensive pressure that eventually forces the predator to disengage and retreat to deeper water. However, the encounter has alerted every crocodile in the lake system to the presence of potential prey, while demonstrating that successful attacks are possible. The increased crocodile activity will make subsequent water access attempts more dangerous for other family members. The successful defense against crocodile attack provides the family with access to water resources while consuming valuable time and energy reserves. The delay caused by the predator encounter allows hunting teams additional time to coordinate their positions while reducing the temporal advantage that the elephants gained through their river crossing earlier in the pursuit. Young Casey's water access occurs under maximum protection from multiple adult family members who form defensive formations around the vulnerable calf. His small size makes him an attractive target for medium-sized crocodiles, while his inexperience with aquatic threats increases vulnerability to attack strategies that more experienced elephants might detect and counter. The completion of water access operations provides temporary relief from dehydration stress, while creating new urgency for continued movement towards sanctuary areas. The family has spent critical time in a vulnerable position while their pursuers have used the delay to optimize tactical positioning. The hunter's persistence and coordination suggest professional operation standards that leave little room for elephant tactical errors. Departure from the lake complex toward Western Highlands requires crossing increasingly open terrain where concealment options are minimal and helicopter surveillance becomes maximally effective. The trade-off between water access and tactical exposure illustrates the impossible choices that elephant families face when pursued by well-equipped human hunting teams. Terrain elevation begins increasing as the family moves toward foothills that represent the beginning of mountain country, where forest cover should eventually provide sanctuary from aerial surveillance.
However, reaching forest elevations requires many additional hours of travel across terrain that becomes progressively more challenging for both elephants and their pursuers. The helicopter's operational ceiling becomes a limiting factor as altitude increases, potentially reducing surveillance effectiveness while creating opportunities for elephant families to exploit terrain features that block sightlines from aerial observation points. However, modern aircraft can operate effectively at altitudes well above those typically reached by elephant habitat, maintaining surveillance capabilities throughout most conceivable escape routes. Ground vehicle limitations become more significant as terrain becomes rougher and road networks disappear in remote mountain areas. Professional hunting operations may employ all-terrain vehicles or even airmobile ground teams that can be transported by helicopter to strategic positions. However, fuel limitations and maintenance requirements create operational constraints that may eventually favor the elephants.
Barnani's stamina and coordination improve noticeably as the crisis situation demands performance beyond normal adolescent capabilities. The stress of survival requirements is accelerating his development in ways that would normally require years to achieve. His transformation from dependent family member to contributing participant demonstrates the adaptive plasticity that allows elephant populations to survive extreme environmental challenges. The family's approach toward mountainous terrain represents both progress toward sanctuary and entry into new environmental challenges where different survival skills become critical. Mountain environments contain predator species and terrain hazards that differ from those encountered in lowland habitats. Additionally, altitude changes affect respiratory function and temperature regulation in ways that create additional physiological stress. Weather conditions in mountain environments can change rapidly and dramatically, creating exposure risks that could prove fatal for animals already stressed by prolonged pursuit and dehydration. Cloud cover might provide concealment advantages, while rain or snow could create hypothermia risks for animals whose energy reserves are already depleted by sustained flight behavior. The hunting team's persistence through the second night of pursuit demonstrates their confidence in eventual success, while indicating the substantial financial incentives driving their operation. Professional ivory trafficking generates sufficient profits to justify extended hunting operations that employ expensive equipment and multiple personnel for days or weeks at a time. Communication intercepts suggest that additional hunting teams may be converging on the area in response to radio reports of the current operation. The prospect of 17 elephants, including mature adults with large tusks, would justify substantial resource allocation from trafficking organizations whose operational scale spans multiple countries and continents. Temara's leadership during this extended crisis demonstrates the critical importance of experienced matriarchs for elephant family survival. Her knowledge of terrain, water sources, predator behavior, and human hunting tactics provides the foundation for tactical decisions that have kept her family ahead of their pursuers for over 48 hours. Without this accumulated wisdom, the family would likely have been overwhelmed during the initial contact. The psychological impact of prolonged stress affects family members differently based on their ages, experiences, and individual personalities. Some elephants show increased vigilance and coordination, while others may display signs of exhaustion or despair that could lead to separation from the group. Maintaining family cohesion becomes increasingly challenging as stress accumulates and energy reserves are depleted. Young Kessie's continued survival through the ordeal provides hope for the family's genetic future, while demonstrating the remarkable resilience that allows elephant calves to adapt to extreme circumstances. His development under crisis conditions will influence his future capabilities as a leader, while providing experience that could be transmitted to future generations if he survives to reproduce. The approach towards steeper mountain terrain creates new tactical considerations as elephant mobility becomes limited by slope angles and surface conditions, while helicopter maneuverability is also constrained by terrain proximity and air density changes. The tactical balance may shift as both pursuers and pursued enter an environment that challenges their respective capabilities. Rock outcroppings and cliff formations provide potential shelter from aerial observation while creating navigation challenges that could separate family members or lead to accidents in terrain where recovery from falls becomes difficult or impossible. The trade-off between concealment and movement safety requires constant evaluation as conditions change rapidly in mountain environments. The discovery of a cave system large enough to accommodate multiple elephants provides the first real shelter opportunity since the pursuit began. However, caves also represent potential traps if hunters can control entrance points while forcing elephants to remain underground without access to food or water.
The tactical decision whether to utilize cave shelter demonstrates the complex risk calculations that elephant matriarchs must perform under extreme pressure. Cave environments present unique challenges for elephants whose size and social structure make them unsuited for confined underground spaces. Navigation through dark passages requires different sensory skills, while the psychological stress of confinement can trigger panic responses that endanger the entire family. Additionally, caves may contain resident wildlife that could pose additional threats to sheltering elephants. The temporary respite provided by cave shelter allows family members to rest while evaluating their tactical situation and planning future movements. However, the hunter's persistence and professional capabilities suggest that sanctuary must be found in areas where human access is fundamentally impossible rather than merely difficult. The helicopter's inability to maintain surveillance over cave-sheltered elephants forces ground teams to assume primary responsibility for containment operations. This tactical shift may create opportunities for escape if ground team capabilities are inferior to aerial surveillance effectiveness. However, professional hunting operations typically maintain equipment and training standards that minimize capability gaps between different operational components.
Underground movement through cave systems toward alternative exit points requires navigation skills that elephants rarely need in their normal habitat preferences. The family must coordinate movement through confined spaces while maintaining group cohesion in complete darkness where normal visual communication becomes impossible. The successful emergence from cave systems onto higher ground represents a significant tactical achievement that places the family closer to forest sanctuary, while demonstrating their ability to overcome obstacles that their pursuers may not have anticipated. However, the time spent underground has allowed hunting teams to reposition and potentially establish new containment positions. Forest cover at higher elevations provides the first genuine concealment opportunity since the pursuit began, with vegetation density sufficient to block sight lines from aerial observation while creating terrain too rough for effective vehicle operations. The transition from open country to forest environment fundamentally changes tactical conditions in ways that should favor elephant families with sufficient strength to reach such sanctuary areas. Dense vegetation creates navigation challenges that affect hunters and elephants differently based on their respective mobility characteristics and familiarity with forest environments. Elephants possess natural advantages in forest settings, while human hunting teams lose many of their technological advantages when operating in dense vegetation, where sight lines are limited and communication becomes difficult, or the helicopter's effectiveness decreases dramatically in forest environments where canopy coverage blocks aerial observation while creating turbulence and navigation hazards that limit aircraft maneuverability. Professional hunting operations may have contingency plans for forest pursuit, but these typically require different equipment and tactics that may not be immediately available. Ground pursuit through forest terrain becomes extremely difficult for human hunters whose mobility and endurance capabilities are inferior to those of elephants in natural environments. The thick vegetation eliminates vehicle support while forcing hunters to operate on foot in terrain where elephants possess decisive advantages in strength, endurance, and environmental knowledge. The family's successful penetration into forest sanctuary represents the culmination of a heroic survival journey that has tested every aspect of elephant intelligence, endurance, and social coordination. Their escape from seemingly certain death demonstrates the remarkable capabilities that have allowed elephant populations to survive environmental challenges across millions of years of evolution. Temara's leadership throughout the crisis has preserved 17 lives while demonstrating the critical importance of experienced matriarchs for elephant conservation. Her tactical decisions based on decades of accumulated knowledge have overcome technological advantages that would seem to make escape impossible for animals facing professional hunting operations. The economic forces that drove this hunting operation continue to threaten elephant populations throughout Africa and Asia. Until demand for ivory products decreases substantially or enforcement capabilities improve dramatically, similar pursuits will continue claiming elephant lives across the continent. The survival of Temara's family represents a small victory in a larger war that elephants are currently losing. Consumer education efforts that reduce demand for ivory products offer the most promising long-term solution for protecting elephant populations. When people understand the connection between ivory purchases and elephant deaths, many choose alternative materials that provide similar aesthetic benefits without contributing to species extinction. Technological solutions including satellite monitoring, DNA tracking, and improved detection methods provide tools for enforcement agencies, but these approaches require sustained funding and international cooperation that can be difficult to maintain across political boundaries and time periods. Community-based conservation programs that provide economic incentives for protecting elephants show promise in some contexts, but their effectiveness depends on creating genuine economic opportunities that can compete with the substantial profits available from ivory trafficking. The story of Temara's family illustrates both the immediate threats facing elephant populations and the remarkable survival capabilities that provide hope for species persistence. Their successful escape required exceptional leadership, family coordination, and favorable circumstances that may not be available to other elephant families facing similar threats. The broader context of ivory trafficking involves economic and political forces that operate at scales far beyond individual elephant families or even national governments. Addressing this crisis effectively requires coordinated international action that targets both supply and demand sides of illegal ivory markets, while providing alternative economic opportunities for communities currently dependent on trafficking activities. The future of African elephant populations depends on the outcome of current efforts to reduce ivory demand, improve enforcement capabilities, and create effective conservation incentives. The survival of individual families like Temara's provides hope, while illustrating the urgent need for more comprehensive approaches to species protection. Forest sanctuary areas represent crucial refuges where elephant families can survive and reproduce without constant human interference. Protecting and expanding such areas requires political commitment and financial investment that competes with other development priorities in countries facing numerous economic challenges. The technological arms race between elephant hunters and conservation efforts continues evolving as both sides develop new capabilities and tactics. The outcome of this competition will largely determine whether elephant populations can maintain viable breeding populations or face continued decline toward extinction in most of their current range. Temara's family has found temporary safety in the mountain forest, but their long-term survival depends on broader changes in the economic and political systems that currently make ivory trafficking so profitable. Their heroic escape provides inspiration while highlighting the urgent need for comprehensive action to address one of conservation's most pressing challenges. The resilience demonstrated by this elephant family offers hope that species survival remains possible despite seemingly overwhelming odds. Their intelligence, social cooperation, and adaptive capabilities represent evolutionary achievements that deserve protection for both scientific and ethical reasons. The economic analysis of ivory trafficking reveals market dynamics that make enforcement-only approaches insufficient for addressing the scale and sophistication of modern trafficking operations. Reducing demand through consumer education and providing alternative livelihoods for source communities offer more promising long-term strategies. International cooperation on ivory trafficking enforcement remains limited by differing national priorities, resource constraints, and corruption challenges that allow trafficking networks to exploit weaknesses in global governance systems. Strengthening international institutions and improving coordination mechanisms represent necessary but difficult steps toward effective intervention. The connection between ivory trafficking and broader security challenges, including armed conflict, organized crime, and governance failures, highlights the need for comprehensive approaches that address root causes rather than focusing exclusively on wildlife protection objectives. Temara's successful leadership of her family to safety demonstrates the critical importance of protecting experienced matriarchs whose knowledge and decision-making capabilities are irreplaceable assets for elephant population survival. The loss of such leaders has cascading effects that compromise family survival capabilities across multiple generations. The forest sanctuary that now protects Temara's family represents the kind of habitat preservation that offers the most reliable long-term protection for elephant populations. Creating and maintaining such protected areas requires sustained political and financial commitment that competes with immediate economic development pressures. This remarkable survival story illustrates both the immediate challenges facing elephant conservation and the fundamental resilience that provides hope for species persistence. The successful escape of 17 elephants from professional hunting operations demonstrates that effective resistance remains possible when elephant intelligence and social cooperation are combined with favorable circumstances and experienced leadership. The broader implications of this case extend beyond elephant conservation to encompass questions about human responsibility for protecting species whose survival has become dependent on conscious policy choices rather than natural selection processes. The economic forces driving ivory trafficking represent human decisions that could be changed through appropriate incentive structures and enforcement mechanisms. The future will determine whether stories like Temara's represent exceptional cases of successful resistance or examples of capabilities that could become more common through improved conservation strategies and reduced market demand for ivory products. The outcome depends on choices that extend far beyond the African forests, where this family has found temporary sanctuary.